Okay, so the cofunction theorem says that, and we saw this when we did sine, cosine, and tangent for angles A and B in the same triangle. It says if A and B are complementary acute angles, which means they add to be 90. And that happens because, remember, in a triangle, all the angles add to be a total of 180. So if you have a right triangle, which is what we use our trigonometric functions with, for right triangles, trigonometry. Our A and our B, notice if this is 90, how much is left for A and B to make up? Well, we had that right angle, it was 90. So the amount left between A and B is 90. So A plus B is 90, which means they are complementary. That was the definition of complementary, if you recall. Okay, it's two angles that add to be 90. Okay. And so the cofunction theorem says that if you have two complementary angles, right triangle, then the following is true. The sine of A is the cosine of B, and we saw that to be true. The sine of B is the cosine of A. And let me throw out a little example here. Okay, if this were my right triangle, the sine of A would be opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite side for A is 3. The hypotenuse is 5. Okay, so the sine of angle A would have been 3/5. The cosine of B, now notice if we move down to angle B, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. But notice the opposite side for A is the adjacent side for B. So it would be 3/5 also. So that's how that works out, that the sine of one of the angles is the cosine for the other. And that is because the opposite side for angle A is the adjacent side for angle B, and vice versa. Okay, you may want to write these down, or just maybe the cofunction pairs. Sine and cosine are a pair. Secant and cosecant are a pair. Tangent and cotangent are a pair. Okay, and if we looked further into this, notice the sine of angle B, we could go through all of these just to demonstrate, is opposite over hypotenuse, so that would be 4/5 is the sine of angle B. And then again, if we want to show that's equal to the cosine of A, well, if we're looking at angle A, the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent side for A is 4 over the hypotenuse of 5. Okay, so notice they come out the same. Again, that's because the opposite for one angle is the adjacent for the other. Secant and cosecant, remember, are just the inverses of sine and cosine. Secant is the hypotenuse over the adjacent side. So for A, that would be 5 over the adjacent side of 4. Cosecant of B, so if we look down at angle B, cosecant is the hypotenuse over the opposite side. So for angle B, the hypotenuse is 5, the opposite side is 4. Okay, so notice those are coming out. But here's your cofunctions: sine and cosine, secant and cosecant, tangent and cotangent. So when they have a question that says, write the sine of 74 as a trigonometric function of an acute angle, what they want to know is, what would it be matched with? What is it equal to? What other trig function? Well, we know sine and cosine are cofunctions of one another. Okay, the sine of one angle is the cosine of the other. So we know it's going to be the cosine of something. We just need to know what that something is. What angle would it be? Well, it would be, remember, these are complementary. Okay, so if we just take 90 minus 74, we get 16. The remaining angle in the triangle would be 16 degrees, because we have our 90-degree angle, a 74-degree angle, the remaining one would be 16. So the sine of 74 is the same as the cosine of 16. The reason I subtracted from 90 is because this is for complementary angles, and those are two angles that come together to be 90 degrees. So if I subtract one from 90, I would get the other. We're going to do more examples of this, so hopefully it'll clear up more as we go. Okay, Write the cosine of 55 as a trigonometric function of an acute angle. Okay, well, what's the cofunction for cosine? What's paired with cosine? Sine is. So we know it's going to be the sine of something. Okay, what angle would it be? The sine of what angle? Well, remember they have to be complementary, so they have to add to be 90. So I just take my 90, subtract the 55 to find out what's left for my other angle. And I get 35 degrees. So the cosine of 55 is the same as the sine of 35. And you can check that on your calculator and just make sure, but it is the case. Okay, next, write the tangent of 23 as the trigonometric function of an acute angle. So tangent, what is its cofunction? Cotangent. Okay, so the cotangent of 23 would be the cotangent of what angle? Again, they're a pair of complementary, so we know together they have to be 90 degrees. We take our 90 minus 23, and we find that there's 67 degrees left for our other angle. So the cotangent of 67 degrees is the same as the tangent of a 23 degree angle.